I'm Zoe. I'm a research analyst at Arizona State University Global Center for Applied Health Research. And yeah, I'm also doing this as a part of like an AmeriCorps contract with something called Survivor Link that is focused on kind of creating specialists who can advocate and also like do these little presentations and kind of spread the word about how to work with clients that have experienced domestic violence. If any of you were present at our other one, this is a part of like a series. This is the second part of the series. If you don't have the um, recording from the other one, um, I'm sure I'm sure something can be figured out. So let us know if you didn't get to see the recording of the first one. That was just a general kind of discussion on domestic violence and then working with clients. Hello, everyone. Thanks for putting your affiliations in there as well. That's very fun. Okay. So what is technology facilitated abuse? That's going to be one of the first things we're talking about today. It's when digital tools are weaponized by someone who is using violence or abuse in some type of dynamic or relationship. So it might seem like it's kind of like a futuristic problem, but it is definitely happening right now. It can be very subtle and it can still be very harmful. So survivors may be tracked through GPS, they might have their cloud backups monitored, or they might receive threats involving intimate images or what might colloquially be called revenge porn. And what makes this pretty scary is that a lot of times technology facilitated abuse flies under the radar. It can seem invisible and it can often fly under the radar, especially in terms of what would be considered evidence in a court of law or in the criminal legal system. But it is still deeply impactful, and survivors may feel like they're constantly being watched. And then on the slide here, it says impersonation or doxing. For anyone that doesn't know what doxing is specifically, that is when someone exposes another person's Oh, no problem. And also, if you're having problems with the pretest, don't even worry about it. That's totally fine. Um, but doxing is when you expose another person's private information. So like posting someone's address online or posting like where they work, their full name, things that you can easily identify someone with that may have not had an online presence before. That is what doxing is. Okay. And then understanding digital safety planning. When we talk about digital safety planning, we're not talking about like telling survivors to just throw their phones or like go off the grid. That can be isolating. Instead, the goal is to help survivors stay connected and informed while also minimizing digital risks. So this is an ongoing collaborative process where we help survivors identify their threats, build digital boundaries, and think through safe communication strategies that actually work in their day-to-day life. And then again, just this reminder up here, cutting off all tech can isolate survivors. So even if people think that or are experiencing that a lot of the cloud is being hacked, there are other ways to think about how to keep survivors in communication with those around them to avoid different types of isolation. And as we talked about in session 1, it is important to also respect client self-determination. So if clients want to stay connected to the people around them, that is within their self-determination and their autonomy, and working around and working with digital safety planning can help in many different ways. So assessing tech-related risk isn't just about asking, has your partner done something abusive or dangerous with your phone? It's about like getting more curious or asking questions in ways that are non-judgmental. Survivors might not even realize some of the things that are happening are unsafe. So the question of tech facilitated abuse, yeah, no problem again with the pretest. Thank you all for trying. Okay, so it's about getting curious, asking about and assessing tech use. But so we can ask things like, have you noticed anything strange about your phone lately? Do you feel like someone might be monitoring your activity, like someone knows something before you even told them? Framing it as not something that's absurdly taboo and something that is like impossible can open the door without putting them on the defensive. So there are a lot of different conversations that can come from tech-related abuse, but making sure that we're keeping a non-judgmental attitude and being an open space for survivors to be able to explain that. Because a lot of times, like tech facilitated abuse, again, like as we discussed earlier, is not as, you know, for lack of a better word, easily provable or something like that. But the evidence is much harder to kind of say, yes, this person is hacking my iCloud and stalking my text messages. I mean, someone could easily log out of iCloud. So there are very perversive ways that tech facilitated abuse can creep into a dynamic in a relationship. Okay, so best practices for survivor-centered tech advocacy. So as people that work with clients, our approach should be rooted in choice, consent, and client self-determination. Survivors are the experts in their own experience. So instead of, it's kind of similar to like a lot of the related aspects of risk assessment and working with clients who are survivors of some type of violence, but not just telling somebody what they have to do, like not just saying like, oh, just delete the app. There are options that can be offered. So that could be like using a different email account for legal stuff, browsing in incognito mode. And then we also always want to factor in culture, language access, and trauma histories when suggesting tools. So it's not just about what's secure, it's about what's possible for that person. So just making sure that there's a lot of psychoeducation going on in terms of how can we use things in incognito ways. Some people don't know that they need to like lock down their Facebook profile for some people. You can have private Instagram accounts, you can have private Twitters. And then encouraging, again, the use of incognito browsers. So that's something to kind of become familiar with in terms of Apple or Android. How do you get to a private browser? That's also something that can be of interest to survivors. Okay, so signs someone might be experiencing technology-facilitated abuse. Often people don't come in saying like, hey, I'm experiencing tech abuse. I feel like that is like not a super common phrase. But they might say that their phone's been acting weird, or they're like scared to text certain people because every time I text this person, like my partner knows about it. These signs might not look like what could be considered quote unquote like traditional abuse. So like obviously tech facilitated abuse doesn't leave bruises and things like that. But they are still very real, and the control is definitely still present, especially when we're thinking about back to the power and control wheel. Technology is an avenue in which to exert power over someone else. Okay, and then supporting survivors experiencing tech abuse. This can look very similar to, I think, working with clients of many types and clients that experience many types of violence, but validating the experience, of course, safety planning, and avoid making them feel paranoid or irrational, for lack of better words. But since these things are quite hidden and a lot of these things move extremely quickly in terms of what can be done with technology facilitated abuse, making sure that we are believing survivors and that it's recognizing that technology facilitated abuse is a more hidden form of abuse, and then encouraging documentation. So things like screenshots, logs, and email trails if safe. So if someone notices, like, it seems like someone's kind of controlling the mouse on my computer, that's kind of a moment to potentially take a screenshot of where that mouse is going. And again, like, obviously we don't know every form of hacking that someone's going to do on someone's device, but it is something to keep in mind and read up on, and also, again, validate that experience. Okay. And then I know I kind of just talked about a lot of scary things related to tech, but there are a lot of important things that come from the accessibility of having technology as well. So it's not just about facilitating violence, but it can also facilitate empowerment and different types of safety planning. So survivors face increasingly complex forms of abuse, and that's whether online or offline. And again, as I kind of said in my last one, violence and abuse are kind of being used interchangeably in this series, but we are discussing, you know, domestic violence and working in that realm of like intimate partner violence, domestic violence, abuse. And digital safety planning can help to give survivors back choice, control, and clarity. So we're going to be discussing, like I said, myPlan, which is an app. myPlan is one tool that supports reflection, risk assessment, and empowered decision making. So kind of giving the power back to clients that may be experiencing tech facilitated abuse, and also just understanding what tech can do to not only facilitate harm, but to also protect survivors that we work with. Okay. So the majority of survivors do not have access to safety planning services. So whether that be because they can't get to a place that has caseworkers, community health workers, social workers, or whether they just are unaware of like where to get help or services, the majority of survivors do not have access. So what is myPlan? And also I did allude to this a little bit in the beginning. I am a part of AmeriCorps. And so myPlan is developed by the SurvivorLink kind of creator. And it is a research-backed app that is supposed to help kind of with the safety planning and risk assessment for people that might not have the same access to physical services. So what is myPlan? myPlan uses technology to address intimate partner violence by helping survivors make safety decisions that are tailored to their situation. So that is an important aspect, and especially one that may not always be accessible to go in person. Sorry if you can hear my dog snoring. Okay, so the theoretical framework of myPlan is the psychosocial readiness model. So on the left here, we're seeing perceived support, so assist with finding support, self-efficacy, engaging collaboratively, and then awareness, so information about healthy relationships. So all of these together in a cycle can help create internal factors for positive change. So that is the theoretical model of allowing women to take control and become more aware of their own situation and have tailored responses. So it was developed and tested with survivors and advocates. So you can kind of see like there's a lot of people who have kind of put work and research into this. So it's based on the science of decision making and then backed by different types of research. Okay, so the findings from all the studies and things like that included decreased decisional conflict. So they increased the perceived support around them and then increased certainty. So what this means, decisional conflict, is more about the internal kind of like, oh, I don't know what I can do here. I don't know how to make a decision. I don't know which decision to make. So utilizing myPlan helped people increase like their perceived support. So people and resources around them seemed more accessible and supportive, and then also increase certainty when making decisions for themselves and their situation. In college women, it decreased reproductive coercion and decreased risk of suicide and depression. So last session, we kind of discussed reproductive coercion, and that can look like quite a few things. So reproductive coercion is any type of power, control, or abuse that is associated with like reproduction. So, and that can mean I'm going to hide your birth control, I'm going to poke holes in the condom without you knowing. Or it can be like, you're definitely not going to have this baby. So there are many different ways that reproductive coercion can come about, but it focuses on reproduction, fetuses, babies, like anything within that realm that revolves around power and control is considered reproductive coercion. And then long-term use of the app, there was decreased depression, decreased exposure to violence, found more safety behaviors helpful. So the psychoeducation of what decisions to make in the moment was a lot more effective long-term. More likely to leave their abuser safely. And then again, like abuser and person who uses violence is kind of used interchangeably here. And then also increased resilience. All right, is myPlan safe? It's important to note that we like do our best to make sure survivors use technology that has privacy and safety. Partners that use abuse often misuse technology to monitor, control, or harm their partners. This safety toolkit, I we'll also like end up putting in the chat later on as well, so you can all take a look. But there's a toolkit in terms of the use and the safety. All right, so safety considerations before, during, and after use. So that includes things like, you know, like deleting the app if you don't want to have it on your phone. Or there are other considerations that are built into the app, but something to be aware of when you are using myPlan or recommending myPlan or any type of security app, or like secure messaging app. If anybody is aware of what the Signal app is, that is like an encrypted, it's an encrypted messaging service. Something like that is also something to be aware of in terms of your download history. So similar safety considerations before, during, and after use are similar to other considerations with other apps. So if you want to delete it from your iCloud history, that's something to be aware of for clients as well. Okay, so the safety considerations that are built into the app is something called a PIN and a dummy PIN. So the regular PIN, I'm sure a lot of us have passwords on our phones, but that's like what would be considered like your PIN to get in the app. So there is a real PIN that happens. And then there's also what's called a dummy PIN. So dummy PIN is like a different PIN that you make up in the app, and it takes you to a completely different app. So it'll say myPlan at the top, but it'll say like it's for organization. So you can see that like if they put in the correct PIN, it'll take them to the regular app. If you put in the dummy PIN, it takes you to a fake version of the app. And then also there is a quick exit button here. So if in case anybody wants to just like leave the app immediately, this is the button for them. It has the person running to the door. There is a changeable home screen icon. So like this is the default, but again, you know, people who utilize tech facilitated abuse are like many times very savvy. If they look up like Leaf app or something like that, myPlan could come up or something like that. So utilizing the app icon feature can change it to like time or like organization. And again, when you put your dummy PIN in, it takes you to something that is similar to what these would be, like an organization app. So it also at least also matches what myPlan could sound like. It could sound like an organization and planning app. And then another thing is that it is concealed when switching tabs. So I don't know if anybody recognizes this screen on an iPhone, but this is when you swipe up to go through your different apps, like, oh, I want to go back to Instagram. It will hide everything that's on here. So that if someone's looking over a client's shoulder, they can't see. Okay. And then again, it's free, it's personalized, it's confidential. It doesn't store like certain things from into like a different cloud. It is designed to increase access to personalized safety information for people experiencing abuse or violence from their partner or from their ex. So it is specifically related to like domestic or intimate partner violence, but there could be other resources for safety planning in other situations, but this app will specifically ask questions for intimate partner or domestic violence. If anybody's interested or wants to look at the app themselves, there's a QR code here if you want to look at it. But if you don't want to, that's totally fine. We'll kind of also just kind of like go through what it might look like if you were going to suggest this to a client. And then I know I'm gonna press next, but if you want to look it up in your own app store, it's called myPlan. So I'm gonna go, but you know, feel free to look it up, and also you don't have to download it. Okay, so we'll go a little bit through some of the sections. So again, getting started and setting up your PIN. So all the info you put into myPlan is anonymous. It's saved with a privacy PIN code. So it's going to be like a 4-number PIN. And then it, again, like because nothing is stored in the cloud, you kind of have to delete and re-download it if you forget. And that's just for privacy purposes. The features are not different on Android. You can still change the icon app and it still will have like the quick exit and things like that. So it should be the same. But yes, so again, like they'll have, again, because nothing's stored in the cloud, they'll have to reset it if they forget it. But you know, they can just retake the questions. Sorry, the download, this is not supposed to be crossed out. Please keep the motivation. The download got a little wonky. But it's going to ask questions, you know, like checking in on feelings and motivation. And the thing with this, if you feel as though clients do not have in their client self-determination or their motivation that they should leave, this type of app can be used throughout the process, whether they're like contemplating like the idea of leaving, whether they don't want to leave, they can just create a safety plan just in case, and they can keep it with them. But this can be used at any process at which your client feels comfortable. Okay. So myPlan uses data to provide users with resources based on their situation. And I know some of these may seem quite intrusive. So like, do you identify as LGBTQ? Like, you know, some people might not want to answer that. But as someone who is suggesting this to someone, you would say like, well, it's not stored anywhere. So like, even if you delete the app, all your data is gone. So it's a plus and a minus. Like they can't get the data back. But they can re-answer the question. So in the name of privacy, like these things are never stored. They're just stored, like saved on the app that they're using that's associated with what's on the phone currently. And then do you have children who are in the home? These are just some examples. Do you have pets that are important to you? That's also an important part of safety planning, as I'm sure a lot of you are aware. And then do you want myPlan to include culturally specific resources? And down here we have like different ethnic and racial groups. So it also does take into account race and ethnicity and culture in terms of providing resources for clients that may feel more safe. Okay, and then it does ask about your relationship or the client's relationship, gain clarity about the health and safety of your relationship. So the example here is, does he not respect your boundaries? So convince you to do things you don't want to do, make threats to get his way. So there's a main question and then some exemplary questions about like certain behaviors. And then there is also a danger assessment to understand risk factors for serious injury or homicide. So ... is your partner ... controlling? So which type of these behaviors are associated with your partner? So like this person clicked demanding to know where you are every minute and trying to control how you look, what you wear, what you eat, etc. And so the risk factors are normally for like serious injury or homicide, because like, again, there are very different levels and some people don't want to leave, some people do want to leave. The danger assessment does assess for serious injury and or homicide. So that is also something to make clients aware of, but that is something that they would most likely be asked in danger and risk assessments in person as well. There are questions about the gender of the app user. I'm unsure about the domestics of, or the demographics of the person using the violence. I can check in on that. Thank you for that question. If anyone else had that question, I will check up on that as well. And also, I don't know if anybody went through the app. I haven't gone through the app in like a little bit, but I will, I'll download it soon and then we'll kind of come back to that as well. And then from your responses or the client's responses, you will receive immediate feedback on the level of danger. So this person has quite a severe score. So your ex shows signs of being potentially dangerous. You are at risk of being seriously injured. Take steps now to protect yourself. So it includes different steps that they can take within their own agency, like talk to someone you trust, make a safety plan. So things that are within the app, you can make a safety plan, contact a domestic violence agency for confidential help, and they do provide resources for certain agencies. But from the danger and risk assessment, you can receive immediate feedback on the level of danger. Sorry, my dog snoring. I really don't know if you can hear it. So then get clarity about priorities. So this is also something that's important in client self-determination. It asks which of these factors is more important to you. So my safety or my feelings for him, both are valid in someone's experience and in their safety planning. So it will also rank like certain top priorities. And then it also, again, like kind of does some psychoeducation here at the bottom. DV agencies, domestic violence agencies, are free and confidential. They are trained to help with safety planning and finding options to increase your safety. So it does include certain psychoeducational properties along with it, and then resources as we discussed. So it's kind of embedded throughout the process of suggestion, but also psychoeducation. So then there's a section called My Strategies. Is the app available in multiple languages? That is a good question. Let me download in a little bit and we can go through that also. Or I don't know if anybody's already downloaded it and can tell. But here are this is the My Strategies section. So exploring strategies for safety and well-being, personalized based on the input. So the strategies are 100% customized to you. So 8 strategies for safety planning, strategies for staying safe if ending the relationship, making my online life and private life safe. So all the stuff we talked about with tech facilitated abuse, it does also take that into account. Also strategies for reaching out and disclosure, legal help, taking care of my emotional health and well-being. And again, those are more personalized for the person. So it kind of depends on what you are putting in there. I'm keeping note of everything that's coming through with the chat as well. That I will, and if some of these features if they're not already like brought up in the app itself, I will also, like bring it up as to, like to the team. Okay, I just started downloading it as well, so we can go through together. Okay, so then also here it is with the My Resources, talking to someone who understands. There's always an advocate available through the app. Text with someone who understands. There are different advocate resources here, mental health and self-care, health and sexual health, and legal help. So it kind of is based on what you told it about where you are. It can help find domestic violence organizations that are local to you. My Learning, gain more insight into the dynamic of healthy and abusive relationships. So again, some people they don't want to leave certain situations. That's up to client self-determination. But there is a psychoeducational aspect of the app as well. So being able to have clients learn at their own pace and also, when they're ready. And that's within their client self-determination and autonomy. So here are some, sorry for the cutoff. Here's some quotes from the research and the evaluation. This may have saved my life. I never thought of putting together a safety plan before. Again, people who work with clients, that's like a lot more normal to people that have the vocational or work knowledge about how to put together a safety plan. But again, the majority of people don't have access to the knowledge of what a safety plan is or how to make one. It gave a lot of solid, concrete advice as to what to do for a friend. So again, also, if this is something that you want to do for someone else or for a client, you can walk through a client scenario with them, and it gives personal recommendations. So if a client doesn't want to download it on their own phone, you can also download it on your phone and do it for them, do it with them, make sure they have the information, and maybe they'll take it back at some point. Once I finally understood how deadly this situation actually was, I left. Had I not gotten the info from myPlan, we would still be living in fear. So this kind of speaks to the psychoeducational aspect of the app. So if anybody kind of went through, and then one of my coworkers, another Zoe, if you can see in the chat, there were questions about like pronouns or the gender of the other partner or the person using the violence against either you or the client or someone else. It doesn't ask specifically like gender, but it does ask pronouns. So it'll say like he, him, she, her, they, them. So there are questions on that. Even if it doesn't specify specifically the gender, it will specify the pronouns. So for anyone that has gone through, you can kind of like see that it asks like, is it for you as a person? Or it asks like, are you doing this for a family or a friend? I don't know if anybody went through it, but if you did, what strategies populated for you in your safety plan? Again, like you don't have to put your own information in there, but just like if you had a character or person in mind, there might be some specific recommendations for them. How do you think these strategies could help with your clients? And how could advocates use myPlan with survivors? And again, like we don't have to answer that all right now. But are there any like additional thoughts or question on like what we just kind of quickly ran through with the app? I'm also like kind of going through the app right now. So like it asks like, is this about your ex or your partner? So you guys might have seen the language in the past that said you are in danger of your ex. It does ask about whether this is an ex or current partner because as we all know, like domestic and intimate partner violence can also refer to previous partners. It doesn't have to be a current situation. Okay, I don't see anything right now, but feel free to continue thinking about it. Or if you're using the app, feel free to kind of ask about it later. Again, like I will go ahead and put this as well in this link in the chat. And then we can also, that can also answer a few questions, or like the toolkit can answer certain usage or how to safely use the app. So the question, another question, what's the app logo? Because logos sometimes can be very recognizable. So this is the logo, this leaf right here. But the when you get in the app, there is a customizable feature that let me look for that slide really quick while we're here. There is right here. You can change the logo to some, and it'll say time check or organization or something. So, and then if you put in your dummy code, it'll show up actually the time check or the organization app instead of the myPlan app. So it's coded to kind of go between what app to use or what to show on the home screen based on what pin you're putting in. So whether that's your regular pin for myPlan or your dummy pin for your organizational tracker. And then you know, just some helpful tools beyond myPlan are just some things to kind of keep in your back pocket if you're working with people. But secure messaging apps, so like Signal, which is one that I kind of addressed before, but Signal is an encrypted messaging app, or something like Proton Mail for secure email, or even just like making a new email if possible, something that the partner or person using abuse or violence may not know, especially if the client is moving forward into like the criminal legal system. That's also something to be aware of. And then also some device check tips. So check for unusual battery drain or unknown apps. And so how we can do this, at least on iPhone, you can check the battery usage and which apps are using the most battery. So if a client is coming and like, you know, lightly complaining that their phone is also always dying, that's something to be aware of in case something has been downloaded on the phone. And then also disable location sharing, Bluetooth, or unused apps. So like if there's an app that someone like recognized on their apps and then never used again, if they don't recognize that they downloaded that, probably delete that. Bluetooth, just in case it's connecting to something like an AirTag that someone dropped into their car. So also being aware, especially with iPhone, there's a lot of tracking devices that can Bluetooth connect to like a phone or Bluetooth connect to someone else's iCloud. So that's also something to be aware of. Are there any questions? That's kind of the end of the content. All right. Well, also next time we're going to be discussing safety planning more specifically. So not just like digital safety planning or things of this nature, but also just safety planning in general and like utilizing a more trauma-informed lens when we're talking with clients. Are there any? Yes, the slides will be sent out again. Yeah, just without the pre and post test, kind of like last time. But the slides in general with the information about my plan will be available. And then also the introductory stuff about technology facilitated violence will also be in there. Okay, and then thank you, Manuel. There is a question about the gender of the person who is unsafe if you go through the friend or family option. So if it's not about yourself and you want to do it for a client or a family or a friend, that will also still be personalized to them. Carlos, I see your chat. I'm digesting it right now. Yes, like it is, the dummy pin does take you to a web page. It's not built out as like a full app, unfortunately. I do think if it's of concern that a client may accidentally put in their real pin instead of their dummy pin, that's, I think, when you could suggest, like, did you want me to keep it on my phone? Or maybe a family friend could have it on their phone instead, and use the family or friend option. Because of course there are different levels of like someone's risk and someone's safety. So that's also, I think, a consideration in terms of using the app on your own phone or on someone else's phone. So I think that may be up to your discretion as like a service provider. Awesome. Thank you all for showing up and coming. I'll see you all in the next one. And again, emails in the chat if you all have any questions. All right, thank you.